If you're watching this right now, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It means more than you know. And if you've ever had a moment where someone handed you a piece of paper and your whole world shifted, stay with me. Because that's exactly what happened to me. It was a Tuesday. I remember because my appointment was always the first Tuesday of the month, and I had been going to that same medical building on Crescent Hill Road for 11 years. My husband Gerald used to drive me. After he passed, I started taking the bus. I'm Dorothy. I'm 67 years old. I live in a 2-bedroom house in Roanoke, Virginia, that Gerald and I bought in 1989, the year our daughter was born and the year we thought we had figured out exactly how our lives would go. We were wrong about a lot of things, but we were right about the house. The morning of that appointment, my son-in-law was in the kitchen when I came downstairs. He was at the table with his laptop open and a mug of coffee he'd made from my machine with my coffee beans, and he looked up at me the way he always did, like I was slightly interrupting something important. "You need a ride?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. "I'll take the 740. He nodded and looked back at his screen. That was how most of our mornings went. My daughter Cassandra and her husband Marcus had moved in 4 months before that Tuesday. It started the way these things always start, with something that sounds like love. Gerald had been gone for 8 months. The grief was real, and I won't pretend it wasn't. There were mornings I stood in the kitchen for 20 minutes before I remembered why I had gotten up. There were nights I ate crackers for dinner because cooking felt like too much of a performance for one person. My friend Patricia from church kept calling. My neighbor Ruth kept leaving casseroles on the porch. People were kind. Cassandra was the one who suggested it. She drove up from Charlotte on a Sunday in October, and we sat at the kitchen table with tea, and she looked at me the way she used to look at broken birds she found in the yard when she was small, like she wanted desperately to fix something and didn't know if she could. "Mom," she said, "Marcus and I have been talking. We want to come stay with you for a while, just until you get your footing." I said I was fine. She said she knew, but that they wanted to anyway. I should have held my ground. I know that now. But grief does something to your judgment. It makes you think that maybe you don't actually know what you need, and maybe the people who love you know better. So I said yes. They moved in the first week of November with 2 cars full of boxes and a U-Haul trailer. I helped make space in the guest room. Marcus set up a second router so they'd have faster internet. Cassandra reorganized my kitchen cupboards without asking, and I let it go because she was my daughter and I told myself it was an act of love. The first month was fine, mostly fine. The second month, things started to shift. It was small at first. Marcus started bringing in the mail. I didn't think anything of it. He was always up before me, and the mailbox was at the end of the driveway. But then I noticed I wasn't seeing certain things. My bank statements, my utility bills, things I always opened the same day they arrived. "I put it on the desk," he'd say. But when I went to the desk, the pile was always sorted in a way that made it hard to tell what I was looking at. Envelopes already opened, papers tucked inside other papers. One afternoon I asked him directly, "Marcus, did the statement from First National come this week?" He said he thought so. He'd have to check. He never came back to tell me. I mentioned it to Cassandra. She said he was just trying to help. She said I should let people help me. She said it in the soft, careful voice she used when she thought I was being difficult. And I felt something in me go quiet. The way you go quiet when you're not sure if you're right or if you're just old. That voice. I hate that I know that voice now. By February, Marcus was coming to my doctor's appointments. The first time, it seemed reasonable. I had a follow-up about my blood pressure medication, and Cassandra was working, and Marcus said he'd drive me, and I thought, fine. He drove me, he sat in the waiting room, and when I came out, he asked what the doctor had said. I told him, normal enough. The second time, he came into the exam room. Dr. Time, he came into the exam room. Nujreen, I've been seeing her for 6 years, looked at me when he walked in and said, "Is this okay with you, Dorothy?" I said yes. I don't know why I said yes. I think I thought it would be more uncomfortable to say no than to just let it happen. Marcus asked most of the questions that visit. He told Dr. Nguyen I'd been confused about my medications. He said I'd gotten lost driving back from the grocery store the week before. Dr. Nguyen wrote things down. I sat on the paper-covered exam table and felt like a child in a room full of adults. When we got home, I went straight to my room. I sat on the edge of the bed and I thought. I was not confused about my medications. I had not gotten lost. I knew exactly where the Food Lion was. I had been going there since 1992. Something was wrong. I felt it the way you feel weather changing. Not in your mind first, in your body. The dizziness started in March. Just a little at first. Standing up too fast, I thought. I mentioned it at my next appointment and Dr. Nguyen adjusted one of my prescriptions. But when I looked at the new dosage she'd written, it was different from what I was actually taking. I checked my pill bottles that night. Someone had been adjusting them. The count was off. I want to be careful here because I am not a dramatic person. Gerald always said I was the most level-headed woman he'd ever met. I don't say things unless I believe them. And I am telling you. Someone had been going through my medications. I put the bottles in a Ziploc bag and hid them in my winter coat pocket in the back of the closet. I started keeping a small notebook in my purse. Every day I wrote down what I did, where I went, who I talked to, date and time, like a logbook, because I had started to realize that the story being told about me, the confused woman, the grieving widow who wasn't managing, was not my story. And I needed proof that it wasn't. In April, I found the folder. Marcus had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter when he stepped outside to take a phone call. I wasn't snooping, I was just standing there making oatmeal, and the screen was right there and what I saw on it stopped me cold. It was a website, a continuing care community, beautiful pictures, bright rooms, walking paths, a sunroom with big windows. And there, on the screen, was a form. An inquiry form. Pre-filled. My name was in the applicant field, my date of birth, my address, my social security number. I stood there with my spoon in my hand, and I read it twice, 3 times. My vision went strained at the edges the way it does when your body understands something before your brain catches up. I put down the spoon. I walked upstairs. I sat in the bathroom with the door locked for a long time. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about helping me. My next appointment with Dr. Nguyen was the following Tuesday. I had decided by then that I was going to tell her everything, the medications, the mail, the form on the laptop, but I didn't know how to do it with Marcus in the room. When we arrived at the clinic, Marcus went to park the car and I walked in ahead of him. The front desk nurse, a young woman named Angela, who always remembered my name, waved me through. I went back to the exam room and Dr. Nguyen came in a few minutes later. Before Marcus came down the hall, I talked fast. I told her about the medications. I showed her the Ziploc bag I'd been carrying. I told her about the form on the laptop. I told her I was not confused and I was not lost, and I needed her to know that whatever was being said in this room about my mental state was not coming from me. Dr. Nguyen listened without interrupting. She looked at the bottles. She was quiet for a moment. Then we heard Marcus's footsteps in the hallway. She did the appointment normally. Blood pressure, refills, the usual back and forth. Marcus asked a few questions. She answered them briefly. Nothing unusual on the surface, but when I was putting on my jacket to leave, she shook my hand. She always shook my hand, and when she let go, there was a folded piece of paper in my palm. I closed my fingers around it. I did not look at it in the car. Marcus drove home talking about traffic on the interstate, and I sat in the passenger seat with that piece of paper folded in my hand, and I thought about Gerald. I thought about how he used to squeeze my hand at church when the sermon got too long, our own private language. I thought about what he would say right now. I thought he would say, "Dorothy, you have always known when something is wrong. Trust yourself." When we got home, I said I was tired and went upstairs. I locked the bedroom door. I sat by the window and unfolded the paper. Doctor sat by the window and unfolded the paper. Nguyen had written in small, precise handwriting. She said she had significant concerns about the situation I was in. She said that based on what she had observed over the past 3 appointments, she believed I was experiencing a form of elder financial abuse, that someone in my household was systematically undermining my credibility in order to gain legal and financial control over my affairs. She wrote that she had already flagged my file internally and that I should contact Adult Protective Services and a family law attorney as soon as possible. She wrote 2 phone numbers. She wrote, You are not confused. I see you clearly. I read it 4 times. Then I sat with it in my lap and I cried, not from fear but from relief. The kind of relief that comes when someone finally confirms that what you've been seeing with your own eyes is real. That night, I listened to Marcus and Cassandra moving around downstairs. I heard the television. I heard them talking in low voices. I heard my own house the way a stranger might hear it, like a place I didn't entirely belong anymore. I did not sleep much. But I thought clearly, which was more useful. The next morning I waited until Marcus left to pick up a prescription, something he'd started doing, managing his own errands through my car, and Cassandra was in the shower. I called Patricia. Patricia is 71, sharp as a tax attorney, and she has never once in the 30 years I've known her told me what I wanted to hear when what I needed was the truth. I told her everything. She didn't gasp. She didn't say, "Oh no." She said, "Dorothy, are you in the house right now?" I said yes. She said, "Get your important documents, your social security card, your Medicare card, your deed, your bank books, anything with your name on it, put them in a bag. Tell me when you're done." I did it while she stayed on the line. It took 11 minutes. "Good," she said. "Now call your bank." I called First National from my cell phone, not the house phone, Patricia's idea, and I spoke with a fraud specialist named Kevin who took everything I said seriously and did not once ask me if I was sure or if I needed someone to help me understand the process. He flagged the account. He put a hold that required my voice authorization and a secondary PIN for any transactions over $200. He told me what to watch for. Then I called the number Dr. Nguyen had written on the paper, the attorney's office. They had an opening that Thursday. I did all of this between 8,047 and 10:15 in the morning. I was not confused. I was not lost. I knew exactly what I was doing. Thursday came. Cassandra thought I had to follow up with Dr. Nguyen. Marcus offered to drive me. I said Patricia was taking me. I saw something flicker across his face. Not concern exactly, more like recalculation. Patricia picked me up at 9 sharp. The attorney, a woman named Deborah Halstead, who had been practicing elder law for 22 years, listened to everything I brought: the notebook, the Ziploc bag, the photographs I had taken of the screen on Marcus's laptop with my cell phone the week before. She reviewed it all. She asked careful questions. She did not tell me I was overreacting. At the end of the meeting she said, "Mrs. Dorothy, what's been done here is a recognized pattern. It has a name, and you have enough documentation to move forward." We filed for an emergency protective order on my financial accounts. My attorney contacted the county's Adult Protective Services Office, Dr. Detective Services Office. Nunwit submitted a formal report. She had been building one since the appointment where Marcus first came into the exam room, and I didn't know that until later, and when I found out I sat in my car in a parking lot and cried again. I went home that evening and I cooked dinner. Pork chops and green beans. I set the table like normal. I was calm. That weekend, I told Cassandra I needed to speak with her. I asked Marcus to give us an hour. He didn't want to leave. I said, "Please, this is between me and my daughter." He left. I told Cassandra everything. I watched her face go through so many things. Disbelief, then defensiveness, then something that cracked open a little at the edges. She said she hadn't known about the medications. She said she hadn't known about the form on the laptop. She started crying. I don't know what was true in that conversation and what wasn't, but I know she looked at me differently by the end of it, like she was seeing her mother again instead of a problem to be managed. Marcus moved out 10 days later. His attorney contacted mine. There were some difficult weeks. I won't pretend there weren't, but here's what I want you to know. There was a Tuesday morning in that medical building on Crescent Hill Road when a doctor who barely had 2 minutes alone with me saw clearly what was happening and chose to do something about it. She didn't talk herself out of it. She didn't decide it wasn't her business. She took a piece of paper and she wrote down the truth and she put it in my hand, and that changed everything. I think about Dr. Nguyen a lot. I think about what it cost her, the risk, the paperwork, the time. I think about all the women my age who sit in exam rooms and get spoken over and don't have a doctor paying close enough attention. I got lucky. I know I got lucky. My house is quiet now in the way it was before. Not empty, just mine. Patricia comes for dinner on Fridays. Ruth is still leaving things on the porch, bless her. Cassandra calls. We are finding our way back to something, slowly, the way you do when a thing has broken and you're deciding together whether it's worth rebuilding. I still keep the notebook, old habits, and I keep the piece of paper too, folded small, in the inside pocket of my winter coat where I kept the pill bottles. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is someone handing you the truth and saying, I see you, you are not imagining this, now go. If you're watching this and something I said sounds familiar, the mail that goes missing, the appointments where someone else does the talking, the slow creeping feeling that the story being told about you isn't the one you tell yourself, please trust that feeling. Write things down. Find your Patricia, find your Dr. Nguyen. You are not confused. You know exactly what you are seeing. And if this story meant something to you, please share it. You never know who needs to hear it today. I'll see you in the next one. I've thought a lot about what made the difference. Not just in my situation, but in any situation where someone tries to quietly take what isn't theirs. And the honest answer is, it came down to three things. What I knew, what I was willing to see, and what I decided to do about it. Marcus didn't start out by doing anything dramatic. That's what I want people to understand. He started by bringing in the mail, by offering to drive me, by sitting in a waiting room. Every single step looked, on the surface, like help. That's how this kind of thing works. It doesn't announce itself. It moves in slow and quiet, and it waits for you to doubt yourself before it makes its next move. And I did doubt myself. For months I sat with that feeling that something was wrong, and I talked myself out of it because it felt more comfortable to believe I was imagining things than to believe my own daughter's husband was working against me. That's not weakness. That's human. We want the people close to us to be who we need them to be. But there's a point where that wanting becomes a cost you can't afford to keep paying. What finally changed things wasn't courage in the dramatic sense. It wasn't a single moment where I stood up and declared myself. It was something quieter than that. It was writing things down. It was keeping the pill bottles. It was taking a photograph of a screen when I had 30 seconds and the presence of mind to use them. Small, practical, unglamorous acts, the kind of intelligence that doesn't get celebrated but that actually protects you. I think about Dr. Najreen putting that note in my hand, and I think about what that required from her. The observation, the judgment, the decision to act on what she saw rather than talk herself out of it the way I'd been talking myself out of it for months. She modeled something I needed to see modeled. Sometimes the most important thing another person can do for you is simply refuse to look away. Patricia did the same thing. She didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. She told me what to do next. That's a different kind of love, harder to give and harder to receive, but the kind that actually changes outcomes. When I think about Marcus and what happened to him, the legal consequences, the exposure, the way everything he'd been quietly building collapsed the moment someone started paying attention, I don't feel triumphant. I feel something more like tired. Because none of it had to happen. He made choices. Each one made the next one possible. That's how it goes. You don't arrive at something like that all at once. You get there one small decision at a time, and somewhere along the way, you stop asking whether what you're doing is right, and you start only asking whether you can get away with it. That's the thing about character. It's not a declaration. It's a direction. Every day you're moving either toward the person you want to be or away from them. And the gap between those two directions is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just whether you tell the truth about a piece of mail. I'm not the same person I was before any of this happened. I'm more careful. I pay attention differently. I trust my own observations in a way I didn't always used to, and I think that's the thing I'd want anyone watching this to take away. Not fear, not suspicion of everyone around you, but the simple conviction that what you observe with your own eyes is real, that your instincts are data worth respecting, and that the wisest thing you can do when something feels wrong is write it down, find one person who will tell you the truth, and take the next right step. That's all it takes. Not bravery, not perfection, just the next right step.